Yes sir, not a fair side by side, but they're both green, they're vintage inspired divers, they both vibrate when their rotor is spinning, they're not Swiss, and they're legends. Well, local legends.
Baby, when you move your body, 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 baby, when you move your body.
Today we are looking at a totally uncommon side-by-side between the German Glashütte SeaQ and the multinational Bulova Oceanographer Snorkel, aka the Devil Diver. I say multinational because Bulova was born in the States, was at some point Swiss, and now it's kind of a Japanese brand owned by Citizen. And the good old friend Citizen decided to keep the spirit of Bulova alive, and I respect that. Now on the other continent, the German brand Glashütte Original made their comeback on the market with the reissue of the 1969 Spezimatic. The reissued one being named the SeaQ, which is part of the Specialist collection. Now the shape case of the SeaQ is not a revolutionary design, as the case shape feels very common with a lot of vintage watches from that era. It feels very similar, for example, with the Ori 65 or the Seiko 62 Mas. More than that, the dial feels pretty familiar to us, because there are a lot of Vostok divers having the same layout with big numerals and the same long minute arrow hand. Because historically speaking, when Germany was under Russian occupation, the technology from cars to wristwatches was borrowed and adopted for the Soviet country. So if you like the dial composition and you don't have the budget for a Glashütte Original, buy a Vostok Amphibia instead. However, from a dozen of similar watches you can immediately recognize a Glashütte SeaQ. The way the discrete bezel markers combined with the oversized numerals on the dial, the markers and the long minute hand creates a strong identity. And from the architectural perspective, the reading of the essential elements is nature. You can spot firstly the numerals, then the hands, followed by the date, lastly reading the discrete numerals from the bezel. So no matter the context, the dial of the Glashütte SeaQ will be recognized. So the cliché that I see very often on YouTube is that people keep associating the SeaQ with the Rolex Submariner, as being an alternative for the Crown Submariner, which is not true. The SeaQ has a strong vintage inspired appeal, where the Rolex Sub is very sharp, shiny, beefy and modern. Also the SeaQ is more expensive than the Sub with more than 1000 euros. And the reason behind this, when you buy a Glashütte, a German brand, you buy something different because you choose to. You don't see it as a secondary alternative because you can't grab a Sub. So this is how I personally perceive this SeaQ. Now, the Bulova Devil Diver is a reissue after the famous Bulova Oceanographer Snorkel from 1970s, also named as the Devil Diver, because it has on the dial 666 feet depth rating. Muhaha. So our reviewed piece is one of the common versions proposed by the brand, because across time they launched a premium limited edition version followed by a 41mm version and this 44mm version released in multiple colors. However, this one being non-limited and chunkier, it is very accessible on the pre-owned market. For example, I paid for mine $240. And for a pre-owned piece, you get a hell of a diver. A strong vintage inspired dial with the miniature crystal cylinders mounted in the metal frames which are placed above the lumed markers. We also have the hands painted in white for maximum legibility and a cool vintage inspired bracelet that works very well with the tonneau case shape. And what I love about these watches is the uncommon design language, which is not following the actual trend, with the lume peep, the typical 20 minutes markers on the bezel, or the cliché of the triangle at 12 o'clock on the dial. And the specifications, these watches, although are vintage inspired divers, from the dimensions perspective differ quite a lot. The SeaQ measures 39.5mm in diameter with a lug to lug of 48mm, 12mm in height and 20mm between the lugs. The watch has a screw down crown which ensures 200 meters war resistance and has a reed green ceramic bezel insert. As movement, the SeaQ has the in-house caliber 3911 with 40 hours power reserve, where the Bulova Devil Diver measures 44mm in diameter with a lug to lug of 47mm, 14.5mm in height and 20mm between the lugs. The watch has as well a screw down crown which ensures 200 meters war resistance, a sapphire crystal and an acrylic bezel insert. The movement is the common Miyota caliber 821D with a date complication and 42 hours power reserve. And as a common fun fact, the rotor, when spinned at its ideal capacity, creates a vibration that makes the watches to shake on the wrist. And it is funny but scary sometimes when you have the impression that your hand is vibrating for no reason. And that is a common thing that happens on the Valjoux 7750 chronographs. Another common fact is the bezel rotation. Both have 120 clicks and both have the same feeling because the rotation feels tight and precise. Also, the dial diameter feels very similar despite the case size difference, and both have boxed sapphire crystals. But as purpose, these divers take different paths. The SeaQ has a refined appeal. The small metallic elements which surround the numerals and the secondary markers, also the highly polished hands, are creating an overall luxurious, sporty appeal. Where the Devil Diver feels more like a practical legible diver, simpler, created with the function first approach in mind. The embossed tubes that amplify the lumed markers when fully charged are highlighting the feeling of the tritium markers hosted in tubes, exactly as the original model was made. And as for straps, this version of SeaQ comes on a nylon strap with a solid and beautiful refined clasp, combining very well the practicality of the strap with the elegance of the clasp. But I prefer to wear it on a vintage-inspired Forstner stretch bracelet, which is lightweight and complements the case shape of the watch. Where the Bulova Oceanographer comes on a bracelet that I personally like a lot, and I think this is a strong selling point for this Devil Diver. This is an accurate replica of the original one and very similar to the newer Omega Speedmaster model, having those iconic oval links on the sides, which makes it more flexible and more comfortable. Overall, I conclude that the Glashütte SeaQ is a must in the modern dive watch offerings. Although I consider this watch as being insanely expensive for 9,000 euros on a nylon strap or 10,000 euros on a bracelet. Not to mention the poor value retention that can decrease up to 40% on the pre-owned market. Where on the affordable side, for the compelling packaging and the history of the Bulova Oceanographer Snorkel, I consider this piece as an amazing offering, and why not the winner of this battle. However, both these beauties are the proof of passion and craftsmanship demonstrated by these brands across time. And for this reason, both the Glashütte SeaQ and the Bulova Devil Diver will qualify as brave beaters on the channel, taking the positions number 33 and 34 in the Hall of Fame. Because for me, a brave beater doesn't mean to have a cheap watch that can be worn without worries. If you have a watch, no matter the price tag, you wear it and enjoy it in any circumstances. As I wore the SeaQ on the garage over the weekend while I was changing the calipers on my car. Hope the owner doesn't hear about it. And in the end, guys, I'm curious to know, if the SeaQ would have been priced in the same range with the Devil Diver, which one would you prefer? Please let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be brave, but stay safe.